on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. And tonight it's just going to be Yooper and Chris after dark. Chris is coming back from West Michigan as the Whitecaps open up the season in a 1-0 win over the Fort Wayne Tin Caps. And right now the Seawolves are up 5-0 in Akron, that's the only time they play Akron in Akron this season. So, but yeah, if you're wondering who's that, who we have in witness protection program on the below, that's Chris. Now Chris comes in the scene a little bit, but
Chris is being taken to a secure location by the Secret Service.
Yes. Our Tiger Minor League report has hired a Secret Service to bring Chris after clipping, and yeah, it's been a crazy day around here. So I just got back between opening day and then I had a little class I had to go to. So my day is now, it's still not over yet, but the big day, Tigers lose. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the series in Houston and the depressing number today. For the inside number today, that was really depressing, involving one National League team. So, but Chris, how was West Michigan? How cold was it?
It was very cold. It's not the worst I've been to, but yeah, I mean, it felt like it was 36 degrees or so, and the game was about 2 hours, and that's about all I could take. I have winter coat on, winter hat, and by the seventh inning, I just was shivering, like my whole body was shivering. But yeah, it was a good, quick game. There wasn't a whole lot that happened. Ben Malgeri hit a home run, a solo homer off Fort Wayne's pretty talented starter. I've forgotten his name, but he had some good stuff. And then after that, it was just a whole bunch of pitching and some good defense from Isaac Pacheco. You got Roberto Campos got his first single at high A. But really, yeah, it was just it was cold, and I don't think many people wanted to be on the playing field.
Yeah, they remind me of the other, was it Friday in Toledo? It was 46 degrees outside, and the same thing. Like that sitting out there, salute to you, Chris, because that especially when the wind starts coming in because you have the lake right there. Yeah, that's a pain in the butt. So, or yeah, it's not a pain in the butt, it's a pain in the ass. It's just the same thing. But you have to emphasize that. But a couple of things I wanted to happen today, opening day, Yooper, that I thought both you guys thought was interesting in the last couple of days. First and foremost, there is a drinking game involving the podcast. So shout out to a listener sent it in, and we shared it in our DMs, and I'll probably end up sharing it at some point in the next podcast because I want John here. John is still on a cruise with his family for spring break. So, but I got a chance to meet Nick Swain, who was on the podcast, and I was randomly walking in front of Comerica Park. Nick saw me, and we talked for a few minutes. It was good to meet him, and we had a beer together.
Nice.
So it was nice. I got to have a beer with him, and then I saw when I continuing to walk around a little bit, and I ran into a couple other people who, actually 2 people from our Discord. So if you haven't joined our Discord, please do so. I will send the link on the episode description. But got a chance to meet Charles and Steve. So those Charles, again, he also bought me a beer, and so we had all the IPA together, and it was nice. And so then I ended up doing. But I was down at Comerica Park all day they were going around the fence tour, and a lot of people are still mad about the fences. And gentlemen, I'll start with you, Yooper. It's just, to me, it's just a fence. Am I missing something here, or?
I don't understand why there's much controversy. I think that for a long time, a fair number of people have thought there were some things that needed changing out there. But even if you didn't believe it needed change, if you thought it was perfect last year, it's not a significant difference. It looked fine. It's the same for both teams. I don't see how it's going to hurt the Tigers in any way. So, yeah, it seems like much ado about nothing if you're worried about it.
Yeah, Chris, I mean, it's the same thing. I gave like a video tour of it. Scott Harris walked us around the ballpark. Is there something I missed? Something you see in there?
No, I mean, I think people complain about the aesthetics of it, right? And aesthetics are always in the eye of the beholder. And they're like, oh, it just kind of looks like it's tacked on because it was tacked on. I don't know when they decided to do this, but they didn't have the ability, I think, to tear down all the walls and completely redo the ballpark. So mean, we talked about maybe putting some more shrubbery behind that wall in center field, or some arborvitaes or something like that. Maybe green it up a little bit, but I don't know. I think it'll serve its purpose as a wall, as long as it doesn't fall down.
Yeah, and I think there's because there's nothing behind the walls, and they don't plan on putting anything on there. And the right field has that shrubbery, which looked, I mean, it literally looked like it was just finished yesterday, but or how it honestly it didn't have that vibe to it. But overall, the aesthetic was fine. And as somebody pointed out in the press box, if you weren't there for 6 months and had no idea what was going on, you thought nothing has changed.
Yeah.
So that's how the aesthetic looked to some people.
Now, how much shorter is it exactly? Did they tell you?
It's 7 feet. It went from 13 to 7 feet. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but then the bullpen also, they went through and they updated the bullpen a little bit for better sight lines for the pitchers, and they updated the seating as well. So there's the bullpen guys are have some little more comfort to them. And then we got a chance to check out the new clubhouse, and there was a big picture on the entrance there. It was really cool. Got to see that, and there was a couple things behind the wall we can't see, but there's a new player area for player development, and the locker room looked really nice too. That was my first time in the locker room since it's been a while, but nevertheless, some of the changes they made there, and Scott Harris got a chance to talk about that, and people were even saying, well, this could have been done better, and all by the fact that, again, this is going to take time, folks. There's a lot of things that need to be cleaned up here, and Tiger fans I know are losing patience by the day. But as the ball game itself, we'll get to that here in a second. And we do have a couple questions we'll get to. Noah, I saw your questions in the YouTube chat. We'll get to those shortly. But overall, though, I mean, I thought that the presentation today, the whole opening day, Masters Home, sellout crowd, good crowd on hand. The weather cooperated, and for a while, the Tigers played a competitive game. And then the bullpen, which is going to be an issue this year, reared his ugly head. Jose Cisneros' velocity's down, and he has not been able to set up his command of his slider at all. Has not generated any swings and misses. Does have a higher spin rate, interesting enough, but he hasn't been able to do anything with it.
He kind of blamed the cold weather today afterwards.
Yeah, he was talking about he couldn't feel could not get a grip on the pitch itself. It was the same thing with even some of the relievers down in Toledo were complaining about that too. And so, but yeah, the swing and miss stuff was definitely not there.
Yeah, I missed. I was driving when that home run happened, but Adam Duvall apparently is the best player in baseball the first week of the season. But yeah, the weather obviously makes it hard to grip the baseball, but I don't think that was an issue in Tampa, and Cisneros ran into some problems there too. So, or was it Houston? I don't remember where he. It
was Houston, yeah.
Yeah, shouldn't have been an issue there. So, I don't know. I mean, he's looked kind of rough. He looked kind of rough in spring. So yeah, it's going to be a feeling out period, I think, for the first couple months to find out for Hinch to find out who he can actually rely on this year, because I haven't looked, but I've been curious about. It sure feels like relievers have not stranded a lot of runners. I know. I think Lang stranded a few today, right?
I actually saw the number today. It's the last number I saw was 9 out of 15 inherited runners have scored.
Yeah, that's terrible. Yeah. So that's not fun. Yeah, gotta figure something out there.
Yeah, it was Evan Woodbury tweeted it out earlier of M Live. Yeah, 15 runners in the first 7 games and 9 have scored. 9. And again, the swing and miss stuff too, even from Spencer Herbal, who talked about today about changing some of his mechanics as he continues to learn, get back in the pitching a little bit. But he suffered a neck stinger where he was trying to avoid a line drive, and it kind of stung his neck, and because the whiplash part of it. And afterwards, they asked him if it had any effect on his pitching. He said no. It was pretty straightforward too. He's like no. But overall, his stuff, he was talking about how he felt good, and for a while I thought he had decent pitchability, but again, when you don't have swing and miss, it can only go so much. But he had some good, quick, efficient innings early on.
Was it one swing and miss today?
Yeah, just one.
Just one? Wow.
Yeah.
Well, he was getting a lot of weak contact, which has kind of been his calling card all throughout his pro career, other than, Rafael Devers hitting him hard. But, yeah, it's going to be a process for him to find that swing and miss stuff again. We know it's in there, but he's never going to be like an elite strikeout guy, but certainly better than one swing and miss.
Who did
He's
not
Spencer Turnbull, not Spencer Strider.
But there is one pitcher that did stand out today. I got a chance to talk to him, was Mason Englert, who had 6 swing misses. And one of the things he did say, though, was that he wished he would have been able to establish first pitch strike. And so that was something that he really was trying to get. He said he wanted to get better on for his next appearance. And this is the first time, by the way, he was ever at Comerica Park in the building. Keep in mind, he's been down in Lakeland the entire time. But overall, I thought he did a good job in relief. I mean, this is a guy who is a Rule 5 pick, and it definitely showed. I think today, more than his last couple appearances, I think he shows where he's belonging. I mean, granted, a walk and a hit and strikeout, but still, I thought he limited he only had one hard hit ball, but they had 6 swings and misses against a pretty decent Red Sox lineup.
He looks, he's for a Rule 5 kid who's never been above AA, right? He looks the part, and it looks like it's a pick that has a very good chance of sticking. And, they're going to need innings from the bullpen. We'll talk about that more, but I like what we're seeing. And you're right, he limited the hard contact, and he did that the other night too. So, another outing in the books for him, and we'll keep moving forward.
Is that 3 for him now, or 2 games?
3, I believe.
3. Yeah.
3. So our over/under of 40 games is looking. I think it's looking strong. He's going to be pitching 60 games this year, it seems like.
Yeah, I think he's going to make, especially if the way the bullpen's been going right now. The bullpen has been a major issue for the Tigers. It was something that we talked about before the season began as well, because the lack of this is a unproven bullpen. I mean, you have in Trey Wingender and you have Chase Shriven, Shriven's improved himself to a certain extent, but then the rest of it, you have Jason Foley, who I saw something on MLB Network, somebody posted it, that he has not given a home run up on the sinker. He has one of the longest streaks in the league on that pitch, but still, the Tigers last year, K per 9 in the bullpen, I think it was around 6, was one of the lowest in the leagues and lowest in the league, and you can't survive on that. And it's going to eventually, Tigers have to think about something, because down, I mean, you can looking down in Toledo, you looking down in Erie, and you can go, oh wow, you can talk about some of the names that might come up. One name that came up and kind of made a quick impression already in his first appearance today for Toledo. Mud Hens won, by the way, 8-5. And this is a guy we've talked about on the podcast before, and that gentleman's name is the Z-Man. We're going to call him the Z-Man unless we think of something better. Andres
Zabala.
Yeah. That guy went in today, and he was originally, it was weird. We thought it was strange he was starting the season in Erie, but clearly he wasn't. He came in and he's already recorded a couple strikeouts. Castro's off to a good start in Toledo, and they're slowly but surely breaking in both the Seawolves and Mud Hens rotation. But yeah, it would be at some point, like Lynn Henning on Twitter was like, oh, well, I don't know why they brought Jose Cisnero up north with the team. Well, they didn't really have anybody else. What am I missing here?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and he's a veteran, and they're paying him a decent amount of money. I don't think they were going to cut him. Yeah, I don't know. The bullpen tends to sort itself out, right? If you keep giving up runs, then they'll get rid of you. But they'll give you chances to get outs a few times. I don't know. I would hold off for another handful of outings from these guys. I know it's been iffy, but we've seen that before. Last year, I remember the bullpen had a rough stretch, and then they were really good for most of the rest of the year. So it's just going to take some time. Zabala will probably come up at some point. He supposedly touched 101 today, which is something that's interesting. But he's also a guy who doesn't throw a ton of strikes. So I don't know what AJ Hinch's tolerance for that will be. So yeah, I don't know. I was talking about it with the guys from West Michigan earlier, and it's really caring too much about a bullpen on a team that's not going to compete. I mean, obviously, from a fan's perspective, you want them to win, and it
Right.
sucks to have a bullpen blow leads all the time. But from a team competitive perspective, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to have a lot of resources in your bullpen.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense for it. We did have a question, Mark, who I had a chance to meet him in Lakeland. I got so busy I couldn't meet with him, so I apologize about that. To answer the question, Mark, no, I'm not part of Woodward Sports anymore. We are our own independent thing, if you will. I also participate in helping out Fansided, and we have the Tiger Minor Report, which you can donate to our Patreon or PayPal if you want to. And yeah, so we're totally 100% indie again. We're part of We're part of a network too, Fan First Podcast Network. So, but
I'm currently locked up in the Woodward Sports sweatbox.
yeah, for punishment, you're not doing any clips anymore. You get in the sweatbox.
Let me. Hey, how bad is the road noise on my end? Like, is it annoying and distracting? I don't want to be an annoying podcast guest.
You can hear it here and there, but it's not annoying.
No, it's not annoying at all.
All right.
Who's ever watching us on YouTube, say something in the comment section. I think you sound fine. You sound a lot better than I did when I tried to do the show from the road.
That Mercedes 500 has a nice ride.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Yeah, we'll see how long this lasts. I'll probably take off here in a little bit, but I did want to just say hello to everybody.
Okay. Yeah. See people in the chat said the road noise is not that bad. So, all right. Now,
well, it's interesting to me, just to go back to the bullpen quick. I think Chris hit the nail on the head, but it is a frustrating thing for almost everybody. Even if you realize the idea of investing in the bullpen probably doesn't make a ton of sense right now, it's still hard to watch. We still want the flow of baseball, of your team getting the lead and a guy coming in and shutting the door. And, this year when the Tigers let their 4 best relievers go since the trade deadline and on, and really did very little besides sign spare parts from around baseball to replace them. That was one of the big reasons a lot of us had a kind of a short number on the win total this year, was it was hard to really see this bullpen being long-term effective, right? I think in stretches, they'll be fine. Maybe even a long stretch here and there, because that's how bullpens roll. But there just doesn't seem like, other than maybe Lang, that one guy who can come in and really put out a fire and that has some dominant pitch that takes people out.
Yeah, and Cisneros, and the thing with Cisneros' slider too is that if you can sit on that fastball, because if you can't get that slider and snap it off and make it a pitch that you don't have to making them guess, then you're screwed. And he has a changeup too, but a changeup you can't really spot that either. And so again, I just Lynn's comment only bothered me because I felt like it was just kind of like, guys, it's a weekend. Who else are you going to? I guarantee you now everybody's checking out Toledo, or everybody's checking out everything that's going on right now. So, I mean, if he continues to do this, don't put him in high leverage situations. And he does it if he does it in non high leverage situations, then evaluate it then. But I think the Tigers are going to address it. I'm not saying put your head in the sand and not think about it, but it's the flavor of the day is either get rid of Johnson Scope, or now it's Jose Cisneros on the chopping block list. So both of those guys are a lot of anger. So
Lynn said he's getting DFA'd tomorrow.
Who said that?
Henning.
Oh, well, Scope, I think he's only got like 10 plate appearances so far this year. They really are barely using him. So
yeah,
it is a little bit iffy there, but
and
I don't know.
Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
Oh, nothing. I just wanted to mention Jake Rogers, because obviously he had another big home run today, and he just looks so damn comfortable at the plate. I don't know what it is, man. He just, he looked the same way in spring. I got rid of that leg kick from a few years back, and he just looks like a hitter now. Just kind of shocking to me.
Yeah, and the biggest thing too that I took away from today was the defensive switcheroos, if you will. Because Scope only had one. I mean, he had a bat. He walked. I think he I think he grounded out. I forgot where. He popped out to right. Then Nick Maton came in and really he had a walk. But yeah, Jake Rogers, man, I think what it is, honestly, is that he's just even catching wise. I thought he did a pretty good job catching too. I think the biggest thing, Alex thinks it's his mustache. Probably his mustache. But Rogers, again, was hitting pretty well until Tommy John surgery. I think he was coming into his own a little bit. And I think he's just getting back to those swing mechanic changes that he made that allowed him more consistent at bats. And that allowed the flexibility today to put Eric Haas out there, who he had a single today and he went 1 for 3. But it gives the Tigers a lot more flexibility, especially for like they're trying to generate anything on offense right now. I mean, Javi Baez is hitting under 100. You have Maton off to a bad start, but then you see things like Ryan Kreidler's defense, and he made a really good defensive play out there today at second, and it shows why. Hinch said this after the game. He loves Ryan Kreidler and what he can provide, but the sticks. I mean, in terms of sticks today, Cabrera had an RBI single, which was nice to see, and Torkelson had a nice single, but it's going to be either fast or feast or famine or feast, or however you say the terminology. I can't even think of it right now.
Fist of Fury.
Yes, Fist of Fury. Yes, it's going to be Fist of Fury or a limp noodle. That's what the Tigers' offense is going to be this year. So, but we're going to go now inside the numbers, and there's a couple numbers across the board today that stood out to me. But I'll go ahead. Chris, do you have an inside number you want to throw out there?
You know what? No? I did. I haven't checked today, but I was fooling around with at Baseball Savant and looking at some hard hit numbers, and I saw that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. had put 22 balls in play, and 16 of them were 95 miles an hour or harder, which seemed ridiculous to me. But yeah, he's off to a great start. So that was the only number I had. Like I said, I haven't checked to see what happened today, if they even played. But yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, there's been there's cancellations across the board. The Mets and Dolphins. Wow, Mets and Marlins, Reds and Phillies, Yankees in Baltimore, and Houston and Minnesota have all been postponed. And there's a good run of weather though, too. I mean, they haven't had any cancellations I think till today. So, but Yooper, what is your inside number?
Okay, my inside number is 1884 and 6x4. So I'm going back to the Tampa Bay Rays. A couple weeks ago, I picked them to win the World Series, win their division, the whole thing. Their start, obviously, they got to play the Tigers, which is always helpful. But they're the first team in the modern era to win their first 6 games by 4 or more runs in each game.
Wow.
And that goes back all the way to Rogers' favorite team, the 1884 St. Louis Maroons.
Yeah. Good old
I'm sure you have the hat. The Maroons won their first 13 games that year by 4 or more runs. And so break up the Maroons, and they must have broke them up because they're not around. So, but the Rays, since that day of 1884, this is the most 6 4-run wins to start the season.
Wow. Yeah, again, I know people are going to say, well, they've only played the Tigers and the Nats, but to be fair, I mean, what did you want Tampa Bay to lose? I don't understand. Who cares who they played? They've just been looking good. They're looking dominant. So my inside number, by the way, is 19, and that is the swings and misses of one Josiah Gray today, and he lost. The Nationals offense is so inept that it was a solo home run. I believe it was a solo, or what was not a solo home run. It was I forgot how the Rockies scored the run, but
Chris Bryant knocked it in.
Oh, knocked it. Okay, so it was an RBI. Okay. So Gray on the day, 6 innings, 8 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts, but 19 swings and misses. Wow. So you got hosed. And if we talk about where did it go wrong for the Nationals? Well, I can tell you this right now. It's pretty bad when your 1 through 4 goes 1 for 14. I'm sorry, 2 for 14. My math right. 2 for 14. So Lane Thomas got a single and Candelario got a single as well. and that's probably about it. But the offense has been a struggle and it's going to be a struggle all year long for the Nationals. But anyway, that's my inside number. I thought that was a good number to put out there. But moving on now, we're going to. This is going to be a quick show because, again, we're kind of shorthanded and everything that's been going on today. Let's go into the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yooper, what do you got there?
Okay, am I good? Just in general, pace of play and the rule changes. You know, obviously you've been seeing everybody's been seeing the numbers. It's down 28 to 30 minutes per game. It's been great. I'm loving the shorter time. It's really nice to have a nice, concise experience. Not having too many games, like a 9-inning game that occasionally used to draw out to 3.5 hours. It's working. I hope they stick with it. I don't think they need to make major changes. There's less than one incident per game now where they're adding a strike or a ball because of a pitch not being done at the pitch clock or a batter being ready. So it's really becoming more and more unnoticeable. Nothing feels rushed. The baseball, the TV experience. So not missing the shifts. Hardly even think about that anymore. So I think from a 1 week experience so far, Major League Baseball has to be really happy with pace of play issues. Instead of the bad, I went with the rad. Babe Ruth. They sold a Babe Ruth bat today. This is from 1921 called the Polo Grounds bat. 44.5 ounces. He hit 59 home runs that year with this bat. And I just want the crowd, the people listening to know, we got to congratulate Raj for buying that bat for $1.85 million today, setting a record. Raj, I hope you have a nice place to display that bat.
My wife would kill me if she found
it. It's an investment.
She'd say, I would say, well, honey, it's not a hat, it's a bat. And you're like, she would just, yeah.
Well, somebody paid $1.85 million for a bat. And it's wow. From Babe Ruth, and it'd be pretty cool if you had the coin. All right, the good, the rad. We're going way off to the sublime today. Not the ugly. Jack Caglione. Because let's face it, the Tigers are going to probably have a chance at the first overall pick next year, okay? Depending how the lottery goes. Jack Caglione, University of Florida. Already 18 home runs this year for the Florida Gators.
Good Lord.
Has an OPS, kind of a nice one, 1391. Hitting 403, 456, 936 is a slash line. Left-hand slugger, 6'5", 220. The guy has not hit a fence scraper yet that I've seen. Every home run I've seen clears the fence by about 30 feet. This guy can hit. Now, he's a first baseman. That's fine. I guess people would love to have him in a more premium position, but man, that guy is just raking, really on track to be the number one pick in next year's draft. And unfortunately, the Tigers might be in the running for that.
He pitches too.
Yes, he does.
and pretty well. So
yeah, he got like 38 strikeouts in 30 innings, but he's struck. He's walked like 21 as well. So I think his future is with the stick.
That's wild, yeah. Because coming into the year, I think people would have projected it the other way.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, maybe he's going to be the next Ohtani. Maybe that's going to be a common thing now.
People are calling him the Kegly Ohtani. Yeah.
All right, Chris, you got any you want to contribute? Or
yeah, I didn't have anything written down, but since I went to a game, I can kind of give you the good, bad, and ugly from the game.
Yeah.
I guess, I mentioned it before, but Isaac Pacheco, he didn't get a hit. He put together, I think he went 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts, but they were all good at bats. In one of them, he hit about a 400-foot foul ball on a breaking ball and then struck out on the next pitch on a really good changeup. But he made 2 above-average plays at third base that I was really impressed with. Every time I see him play defense, it's kind of shocking how good he is because of how big he is. But, yeah, he made a nice play down the line and a strong throw to end the inning. And then he made, against the lefty, he ranged all the way over to where Soretti was at shortstop and did a spin and threw to first base. It got the guy by half a step. So I don't know. It was really good. Like his defense is I think better than most people realize. On the flip side, the bad was probably Jace Young's plate appearances. He just swung and missed a ton tonight. It was and he must have missed 50% of the fastballs that they threw him, and they were like, from 91 to 95, just swinging right through all of them, and then they'd come back at him with some breaking balls below the zone, and he swung and missed at those too. So it was a tough debut for him, but it's one game. And the ugly is actually something. If you watched the videos the other day, and Raj, I don't know if you retweeted it from the Motor City Metrics account, but when we were out there for the Whitecaps, media day, someone asked them about the biggest changes since Scott Harris has taken over, and they couldn't wait to tell us about how much better the food is now.
Yeah.
And it's not like, hey, we went from like a 3-star restaurant to a 5-star restaurant. It sounds like they basically went from like cans of tuna to actual. I think Jace Young said we actually can get protein now, which was like, what were you getting before?
So I don't even want to know. Well, you know what? They're getting Soylent Green for anybody that gets that reference.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I would think there'd be protein in that, but yeah, that was just kind of unfortunate. And I think you might be writing a story about that. You said, or I don't know. It was...
I did mention that today in my article. I did an article on the opening day with the preview for Erie and West Michigan. Tomorrow I'm doing one on Lakeland because Lakeland does not open the season until tomorrow against Tampa.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's all I had. It was kind of an uneventful game. The pitching was effective, but nobody really stood out until Madison came out in the ninth and was throwing like 92, 93. Everybody was just throwing really, their velocity was down, I think, because the temperature.
Yeah, I can't wait till it's not cold anymore. It is just, it's kind of ridiculous how bad it is out there. But yeah, this is time of year.
It's supposed to get to 80 here in Des Moines next week, so hopefully some warm air is moving your way too.
Hopefully. I'm kind of over it. So it's kind of sucks. But anywho, so my good is Tyler Alexander. Now you're gonna say, Rogelio, Roger, are you crazy? What are you talking about? Well, here's why. He's in the top 25 for vertical movement on his fastball, 2.4. So his numbers are kind of, you look at his numbers closely, you look at the ERA, it's 6.75. It's not good. But his xERA is 3.96. So he had a K rate of 38. He's striking out guys at 38%. Of course, it doesn't matter when they're kind of barreling it up a little bit. But the exit velocity on his people going out off his pitches are 88.3. But the reason why I wanted to mention that is because it's not off, especially with the Tigers. There's been some like little things I've noticed in some of the stats. They're just like they've been doing things you don't see the results right away. But when I was looking a little deeper at his StatCast data, his fastball that's up. So that, and then between that and his cutter, his cutter is his bread and butter. But for his four-seamer, I mean, this is a guy that has been living by the cutter and through the four-seam kind of more or less to kind of get it over. It's still, I mean, the four-seamer is only generating a 12% whiff rate, but that helps set up his cutter better too. So just something that I noticed as well. And the other good, which leads into my bad and this is involving this team, is if you're Shohei Ohtani, you're living pretty good right now because according to the LA Times, one major league official who spoke to the Times and they kept themselves anonymous is that the bidding would start at $500 million and reach $600 million for Ohtani. One agent predicted that Ohtani would sign a 12-year, $600 million deal. And then Sport Track, which I don't like that website because they sometimes are inaccurate, but they were all right about the contracts, recently revealed contract evaluations for Ohtani. 8 years, $230 million as a pitcher, and 10 years, $333 million as a hitter. Combine that's $563 million. So,
in 20 years.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't think he's going to stay. He's not going to stay with the Angels.
18 years.
And speaking of which, they had what's his face? This is kind of like, this is not really the bad part of it, but the reporter involved did an interview with Pat Monahan of the band Train. Train's Train's a terrible band, but that's not the reason why. An angel, or drops a
Calling all you
trooper.
angels.
No, that's it's the same band, isn't it? Yeah, to drop. Anyways, I don't like that band. Sorry. But the reason why my bad involves necessarily not that is Sam Bloom. So Sam Bloom is a writer who covers the Angels for The Athletic, and he was informed by the AM 830, the Angels team-owned radio network, that he was no longer welcome back on the Beat Reporter Roundtable program because he brings, quote, negativity to a beat-up show. So the team president, John Carpano, was told him this, and it's worth noting how the Angels can attempt to filter the team-owned media. And Sam said that in his tweet. So I think it's bad. The Angels have gotten all the bad press lately. Like, Iron Moreno continues to just look like something out of a Justice League supervillain or something. It's just,
well, you don't want to bring your radio crew on the road.
Yeah,
and now you got to try to muzzle your people from pointing out the obvious. To a lot of fans, you can't even point out that there's some problems with the system. It's very defensive and just a bad look all around.
Yeah, I just, again, this is a team that's for the Angels, for all the talent they have, cannot continue to. They're just going to spin the wheels. Just continue to spin the wheels the entire time. And yeah, I thought that was kind of an interesting bad in the sense that they're going to lose Ohtani. They're not going to be able to swing that $600 million deal. And my ugly this week, I don't really have, like, in terms of like an ugly, I don't really have a kind of an ugly. I mean, the only thing I would say is just a real bad would be the NCAA tournament, the championship game, because it was ugly. I mean, actually, it is kind of ugly. Connecticut had no problem with San Jose State.
San Diego.
Wow. San Diego State, the Aztecs. I knew that. Steve Fisher was there. And that was a pretty simple game. They beat Connecticut, had no problem with them. And Connecticut had a whole dominated entire tournament. And they had no teams that really gave them a lot of issues at all, except for, I think, even Miami, where they beat down by 10, was the closest game to them. So the only reason why I thought it was ugly is because, in a sense that this, like, the whole debate about comes from, does this really truly declare a champion and all that? But to me, not having the Blue Bloods there was fun. Not having your Kansas, having your Duke was there. And so just the ugly side of it is just the stupid debates that go back and forth about that. And I know this is the second week in a row I've mentioned the tournament, but it's everywhere, and it's been something that's trending. So I thought it was interesting and worth mentioning. So, but yeah, that is my good and bad and ugly for this week. And Chris, we'll let you get back on the road or continue to focus home. Is there anything you wanted to add before you get out of here?
No, good work today.
Thank you, sir.
Happy birthday, you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, happy birthday. Yeah, we're good. Yeah, I was gonna say we're happy belated birthday to you. So, but yeah, Yooper and I will continue on for a few more minutes. Chris, we'll talk to you later. See ya.
Yeah.
All right. So Chris is continuing. I want Chris to be safe on the road, but
100%.
Yeah. So we had a couple questions in the YouTube chat they wanted to get to, and the first comes up, and this is from Noah, and this is a good question here. His question is, do you think Green and Torque will hit free agency after 6 years? Can the Tigers please sign Torque and Green to long-term deals?
Yeah. Well, I think many times in the last couple months anyway, pretty much the whole offseason, talked a lot about how the whole idea of this rebuild centers around those two guys, right? I mean, if these two guys if either one are busts, it's going to be hard to see them building a lineup anytime in the next couple of years based on what they have on hand. So they need these two to show signs of life. Obviously, Torkelson, for the most part, he's hitting the ball hard. He's looking good, very confident. Crushed the homer the other night. Loved it. Green is showing something too. Still a little bit of some pitch selection I question at times, but again, he's young. He's coming along. They're starting to show that they can be fixtures moving forward. I mean, if anybody who had doubts about Torkelson last year, I'm not saying they've been answered, but I think we're moving in the right direction. So, do you want to make a signing? Obviously, I think it'd be to the Tigers' benefit if they really believe what they're seeing to get that deal done. It takes two to tango. Are they going to want to stay in Detroit long term? I mean, that needs to come from ownership. Do they want to show the commitment to building this team and locking in these talents for an extra couple of years? Atlanta has shown the way that it can be done. The deals can be had. So the only thing keeping the Tigers probably from doing it, if they show them the money, is Chris Ilitch.
Yeah, and Yooper, there's something that I considered when I heard when Young and Pacheco spoke. It made you sort of think a little bit that, and this is something that stems back even a few years before that. As you recall, Erie was considered by many one of the worst facilities out there. Yeah. And Casey Mize said something about that, and when he was pitching out there, and so I think the focus, and this is a greater picture overall, or the bigger picture, if you will. You look at Toledo, look at West Michigan. They've improved their lights, their the cosmetic fan aspects of it, but the nutritional part of things. The Tigers redid the clubhouse. They redid these things. Why? I think really because they're trying to tell players, hey, you can come here and stay long term. Because if there's one thing that again, whether this goes back, and I don't want Alaville to get all the blame for this, but this goes back a long way. The organization as a whole, even under Tom Monahan, when he was the owner, they've always been cheap when it comes to doing certain things, like the little things you don't think about, the nutrition, the having like an extra farmhand extra coaches in these things. So I think the Tigers, what Scott Harris did was realize the Tigers have been, quite frankly, maybe an antique a lot of ways that are thinking. Because having last year talking to some of the minor league players and saying that they now have a plan before they're like, oh, do your thing. That goes back a ways. And so I think in order for the Tigers to have these players sign long-term, they have to take care of some of these inner items first, because I think it's been so, I don't want to say dysfunctional, but it's been status quo for so long that if you don't get that fixed, why stick around here in the long term, Yoop? I mean, if you're a player that is used to a certain way, because I mean, you look at Riley Green, his dad is a swing coach, and the facilities have been nice. And now the Tigers are getting modernized in a lot of different ways, and certain things that you see that are standard, maybe perhaps in camps, in hitting camps and pitching camps, are now becoming part of normal lexicon for the Tigers. Sure. Or they weren't before.
They need to, Scott Harris needs to establish himself. I hate this word. It's overused, but, he's building the culture there of a winning organization. And all the things you mentioned are positives. Okay. Everything's moving up. Get your expectations up instead of down in terms of facilities and programs and everything else. But at the end of the day, it's going to come with more investment at the big league level. And right now, they haven't made investments at the big league level. They've chosen to work at the minor league level, which makes sense. They need to build that core. But they're not going to be able to do what they did this year and have a nothing burger of an off season again for very long if they want to keep guys on board long term. And think of themselves as Detroit Tigers, because, hey, if they're not going to invest in the big league organization, why should I invest my career in them? So the proof's going to be in the pudding. Maybe as soon as this offseason, what direction does Ilitch and Scott Harris want to take this? Will they spend some money in free agency, or are they going to continue to try to build a homegrown core? I don't know. We'll see.
No, and look, and no, I agree with you. I think it would be bad for the Tigers long term for the haul if they can't sign these guys long term, at least one of them. And it shows that, again, even with like the likes of, depending on what happens with Cole Keefe or whomever else, it could be the guy the Tigers are drafting this season.
Yeah,
it has to start somewhere. And I think that Scott Harris is, as much as people want to say he's doing lip service today and the owners are cheap, and we all know this. We all know this. With that being said, still, however, be that as it may, you have to start somewhere. And I don't know where else. If we're for the first time noticing these things in the farm system, where they're doing things that every other organization is doing versus, this is putting me out there, then look, I don't want them. I know fans are like, I'm tired of my patience. I'm sick. I don't want to come back to it. But for now, it's a start, and it's much more you can ask for.
Yeah, fans are, they're fickle, right? If the club starts to win, they'll be back. They can say they're done. Everybody's, I'm done with them. Blah blah. Nothing like a 6-game winning streak to pull them back in, right? That will happen. Once they have a winning team on the field, people will be there. Eyeballs will be on the television. Okay. In my mind, though, and the drinking game guys are going to be happy, Chris Ilitch drives this bus. I mean, we can talk about Scott Harris all you want. How much does he want to invest in this team to get these guys locked in over the long haul, assuming they keep moving forward and deserve to be locked in? Right now, the jury's out. I would have no question, God rest his soul, if Mike Ilitch was here, okay, I feel very confident those guys will get locked up with deals. Okay, no question in my mind. Chris Ilitch, we don't know.
Yeah, and exactly. I mean, that's where the $1 million question comes in, is how much he really cares or not. And so you can say all those things he wants, but the proof's in the pudding, and proof's in his actions too. I don't know. But the other question we had in there was from Alex. If Scope isn't still producing at the plate, do you guys think we'll see Verling in the infield more often? Yeah. It's all evident. That was evident today. And Verling had a really good series in Houston. I love that play he made to it. I think it was Cisneros pitching, actually, where he made that diving catch and right. He's looked good, hitting the ball, driving the ball with good power. He had a stolen base. He has shown everything. And immediately the Phillies are like, damn it. We can use them right now because they've been getting injured. They have injuries. They called up Cody Clemens yesterday. Yeah. That's how banged up the Phillies are. And the Phillies, I mean, they're just, I don't know what's going on over there. But anyway.
Yeah, you know, with Scope the other night, we played third base for the first time in many years, right?
Yeah.
His arm, for whatever reason, his arm didn't look up to the task. Now, on the first play, the ball hit third base, and he barely gloved it because it took a weird hop. And I don't know if he got a good grip, so I'll give him a complete pass on that first throw. But then he had a couple more throws. The one down to second base that could have been a double play, another one over to first that he skipped over. I thought he's had a good arm over the years, but he looked pretty shaky at third. So I don't know how that will go going forward. But the big thing with Veerling is this. What's going to be more likely to produce in the future when this club is ready to win? Veerling or Scope, right? It's going to be Veerling, almost for sure. I mean, you can just see Scope's game is so hit and miss that there's nothing to rely on there. So you got to hope they can develop Veerling into a player. So I would, always lean to playing that guy. And I'm not always a play the young guys only person, but in this case, it just, with Scope being so, meh, it's hard to justify having the other guy sit.
Yeah, at some point the Tigers are going to. I think there's going to be a couple. I think by the end of, I would say probably the next 2 weeks, we might start seeing those different pieces to come. But as far as who they bring up and all that, that's a different story for a different day. But I I have to think that Justin Henry Malloy, who's off to a really good start down in Toledo, will get some consideration.
He's walked like 9 times already,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, he's walked. Yeah, he's showing really good patience at the plate. I like the singles have been just like he's hitting the ball pretty well. And same thing with like Parker Meadows, where I think Andre Lipsius has pressed a little bit here and there, but he's starting to get back in the swing of things a little bit too. But the Tigers have to really look themselves in the mirror and say, okay, what are we? And we'll know shortly. Are we a team that's going to be terrible and lose 100+ games? Or are we going to be just good enough to win 70 to 75 games and still lose 90 games? I don't like it's, I don't think they're Nationals bad level.
If again, it all boils down to Torkelson and Green, right? If they become league average or better players in year 2 here, then that will keep the Tigers above water to a certain extent. If they struggle, then they could easily be a 58-win team. But if those two guys can play, then you can see them, staying competitive.
Yeah, and even today, Kerry Carpenter, I think he had a double. I think.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, so
I like that guy.
Yeah, and Carpenter's going out there, and he's had a couple extra base hits already. So if the Tigers can continue to get some the offense kind of going along those ways and get one more back going, then and offensively today, they looked fine, but then like just it showed some patience at the plate. Baez got a walk, but it was a bullpen in this case. Talk about Zabala, by the way. Zabala's down in Toledo. He was just somebody asked in the YouTube chat what happened to him. He's had a couple appearances so far back to back for the Mud Hens, and he hit 101. Chris said that earlier, so he witnessed him hitting 101. But as far as Tyler Nevin, look, here's another thing too that came up today in the press box about. I was talking to somebody about Tyler Nevin, and everybody's talking about bringing him up, and he is on a rehab assignment, so the Tigers have to think about where to put him. But he's against AAA pitching, folks, and I mean, when you're going, you get excited. Like I saw him in Toledo, he did what he was supposed to do, which is crush the ball. He crushed the ball, but
he might be the new Trace Thompson.
Yeah, but it's against 4A pitching.
Yes.
I couldn't, you know what, Yooper, I could not handle another summer going, well, what if, man, no. But as far as when he's going to get the call up, I think it's going to have to happen soon. If he continues to rake like he is, great, because they play Louisville next week, and the Reds have they don't have really a lot of blue chip prospects for the Pats. I don't think I have to double check, but
listen, there's no question that there should be major league opportunities for a lot of guys who want to make careers as bullpen pieces or as, corner platoon guys. There should be plenty of at-bats in Detroit for those guys this year.
There's no reason for that not to happen. It's just depending on how patient the Tigers want to be. So, but on that note, thank you so much for listening to Motor City Metrics podcast here over on our channel at Motor City Metrics Baseball or at Tiger Minor League Report, as we continue to do split channels until everybody gets used to us having it over at Motor City Metrics. And so go to our patreon.com/Tigers Minor League Report to support the podcast. If you want to support the podcast as well, we have a PayPal link too, and we really appreciate that. We have a super chat feature on the Tiger Minor League Report. We're going to be busting out on Sunday. So, but we appreciate everybody tuning in tonight on YouTube and tuning in for Chris, and thanks everybody for being patient tonight. Like I said, it's been opening day. Opening day is fun. It really is. I mean, as a fan, it is, because in most cases today, I've seen fans there when I was leaving or when I got there at 7:30 already cracking open like 3 or 4 beers. And
nice.
Yeah, it was interesting to see how people break up the day. They take a nap in their car, or however they divide and conquer, Yooper, if you will, for lack of better words. But yeah, it was. Oh, I forgot to mention this because I wanted to give a shout out to the Turning the Corner podcast. or not turning the corner. Did I say that right?
I think so.
The corner. So it's the podcast from Cody Saberhagen and Kern, who's in town from Texas, came up and they were giving away beer koozies. It's brilliant marketing, and it gave away any listener they were running into. And I think we're on to something with that. I mean, we do give away shirts on the minor league side with the Tiger Minor Report, but we are going to start once we can get some extra funds, give away some Motor City Metrics t-shirts. But anyways, I want to give a shout out to those guys. It was good to see them out there out about, especially with Kieran, who's used to Texas weather and he was out there. But shout out to him and the koozie, which I thought I had on me, but it's in my jacket and it's in the other room. So, but I'll put a picture on it on Twitter. So follow us on YouTube, Motor City Metrics Baseball, and continue to subscribe if you haven't. Like and subscribe to our channel. And we'll talk to you on Sunday. John, we'll have the full crew available. No segments for the show. Actually, a little more production in the show. We'll have some more production, I promise. But this is the tail end of a 13-hour day, and I am going to bed. So on that note, thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night.